The Dominican Republic is a country located in the island of Hispaniola, in the Greater Antilles archipelago of the Caribbean region. It occupies the eastern 5/8 of the island, which it shares with the nation of Haiti, making Hispaniola one of two Caribbean islands, along with Saint Martin, that are shared by two sovereign states. The Dominican Republic is the second largest Caribbean nation by area after Cuba and third by population with approximately 10 million people, of whom approximately 3 million live in the metropolitan area of Santo Domingo, the capital city. Christopher Columbus landed on the island on December 5, 1492, which the native Taino people had inhabited since the 7th century. The colony of Santo Domingo became the site of the first permanent European settlement in the Americas, the oldest continuously inhabited city, and the first seat of the Spanish colonial rule in the New World. After more than 300 years of Spanish rule, the Dominican people declared independence in November 1821. The leader of the independence movement, José Núñez de Casillas, intended the Dominican nation to unite with the country of Gran Colombia, but no longer under Spain's custody. The newly independent Dominicans were forcefully annexed by Haiti in February 1822. Independence came 22 years later after victory in the Dominican War of Independence in 1844. Over the next 72 years the Dominican Republic experienced mostly internal conflicts and a brief return to colonial status before permanently ousting Spanish rule during the Dominican War of Restoration of 1863 to 1865. A United States occupation lasted 8 years between 1916 and 1924, and a subsequent calm and prosperous 6-year period under Horacio Vázquez was followed by the dictatorship of Rafael Leonidas Trujillo until 1961. A civil war in 1965, the country's last, was ended by U.S. military occupation and was followed by the authoritarian rule of Joaquin Balaguer 1966 to 1978 and 1986 to 1996. The rules of Antonio Guzman 1972 to 1978 and Salvador Jorge Blanco 1982 to 1986. Since 1996, the Dominican Republic has moved toward representative democracy. The Dominican Republic has the 9th largest economy in Latin America and is the largest economy in the Caribbean and Central American region. Over the 2 decades to 2012, the Dominican Republic has had one of the fastest growing economies in the Americas, with an average real GDP growth rate of 5.4% between 1992 and 2014. In the first half of 2016 the Dominican economy grew 7.4%, continuing its trend of rapid economic growth. Recent growth has been driven by construction, manufacturing, tourism, and mining. The country is the site of the second largest gold mine in the world. The Pueblo Viejo mine private consumption has been strong, as a result of low inflation under 1% on average in 2015, job creation, and a high level of remittances. The Dominican Republic is the most visited destination in the Caribbean. The year-round golf courses are major attractions. The island has an average temperature of and great climatic and biological diversity. The country is also the site of the first cathedral, castle, monastery, and fortress built in the Americas, located in Santo Domingo's Colonial Zone, a República Dominicana. UNESCO. Org. November 14, 1957. Retrieved on the 2nd of April 2014. Music and sport are of great importance in the Dominican culture, with merengue and bachata as the national dance and music, and baseball as the favorite sport. For most of its history, up until independence, the country was known as the name of its present capital and patron saint, Saint Dominic, and continued to be commonly known as such in English until the early 20th century. The residents were called Dominicans, which is the adjective form of Domingo, and the revolutionaries named their newly independent country Dominican Republic. In the national anthem of the Dominican Republic, the term Dominicans does not appear. The author of its lyrics, Emilio Prudhomme, consistently uses the poetic term Quisquians. The word Quisquia derives from a native tongue of the Taino Indians and means mother of the lands. It is often used in songs as another name for the country. The name of the country is often shortened to the D.
History. Pre-European history.
The Arawakan-speaking Taino moved into Hispaniola from the northeast region of what is now known as South America, displacing earlier inhabitants, and hunting and gathering. The estimates of Hispaniola's population in 1492 vary widely, including 100,000, 300,000. Determining precisely how many people lived on the island in pre-Columbian times is next to impossible, as no accurate records exist. By 1492 the island was divided into 5 Taino chiefdoms. The Taino name for the entire island was either Iti or Quisquia. The Spaniards arrived in 1492. After initially friendly relationships, the Tainos resisted the conquest, led by the female chief Anacona of Xaraguo and her ex-husband Chief Conabu of Maguana, as well as chiefs Guacanagarix, Guama, Hatui, and Inriquillo. The latter's successes gained his people an autonomous enclave for a time on the island. Within a few years after 1492, the population of Tainos had declined drastically, due to smallpox, measles, and other diseases that arrived with the Europeans, and from other causes discussed below. The first recorded smallpox outbreak in the Americas occurred on Hispaniola in 1507. And some present-day Dominicans have Taino ancestry, as well as pottery designs which are still used in the small artisan village of Higuerito, Mocha.
European colonization.
Christopher Columbus arrived on the island on December 5, 1492. During the first of his 4 voyages to the Americas, he claimed the land for Spain and named it La Hispaniola due to its diverse climate and terrain which reminded him of the Spanish landscape. Traveling further east, Columbus came across the Yerque del Norte River in the Cibao region, which he named Rio do after discovering gold deposits nearby. On Columbus' return during his second voyage he established the settlement of La Isabela in what is now Puerto Plata on January 1494, while he sent Alonso de Ojeda to search for gold in the region. In 1496 Bartholomew Columbus, Christopher's brother, built the city of Santo Domingo, Western Europe's first permanent settlement in the New World. The colony thus became the springboard for the further Spanish conquest of the Americas and for decades the headquarters of Spanish colonial power in the hemisphere. Soon after, the largest discovery of gold in the island was made in the Cordillera Central region, which led to a mining boom. By 1501, Columbus' cousin Giovanni Columbus had also discovered gold near Buenaventura. The deposits were later known as Minas and Vivas. 2 major mining areas resulted, one along San Cristobal Buenaventura, and another in Cibao within the La Viga Cotuí Banao Triangle, while Santiago de los Caballeros, Concepcion, and Banao became mining towns. The gold rush of 1500 to 1508 ensued. Ferdinand II of Aragon ordered gold from the richest mines reserved for the crown. Thus, Ovando expropriated the gold mines of Miguel Diaz and Francisco de Garay in 1504, as pit mines became royal mines, though places were open to private prospectors. Furthermore, Ferdinand wanted the best Indians working his royal mines, and kept 967 in the San Cristobal mining area supervised by salaried miners. Following royal orders, in 1605 Governor Antonio Osorio ignored Cabildo protests and had the settlements at Puerto Plata, Montecristi, La Yaguana, and Biar burned to stop smuggling. Some rebelled and were defeated while others fled to Cuba. Only 2,000 livestock out of 110,000 survived in the new pasture. One-third of the people from Alain Yaguana and Biar who were settled at Biaguana died of hunger and disease by 1609. The French were envious of Spain's possessions in the Americas, and thus sent colonists to settle the northwestern coast of Hispaniola. In order to domesticate the buccaneers, the French supplied them with women who had been taken from prisons, accused of prostitution and thieving. After decades of armed struggles with the French, Spain ceded the western coast of the island to France with the 1697 Treaty of Ryswick. Whilst the Central Plateau remained under Spanish domain, France created a wealthy colony there, while the Spanish colony suffered an economic decline. On April 17, 1655, the English landed on nearby Hispaniola and marched 30 miles overland to Santo Domingo, the main Spanish stronghold on the island. The sweltering heat soon felled many of the northern European invaders. The Spanish defenders, having had time to prepare an ambush for the aimlessly thrashing, mosquito-swatting newcomers, sprang on them with mounted lancers, sending them careening back toward the beach in utter confusion. Their commander, Venables, hid behind a tree where, in the words of one disgusted observer, he was so much possessed with terror that he could hardly speak. The elite defenders of Santo Domingo were amply rewarded with titles from the Spanish crown. The French attacked Santiago in 1667, and this was followed by a devastating hurricane the next year and a smallpox epidemic that killed about 1,500 in 1669. In 1687, the Spaniards captured the fort at Pettigove, but the French fought back and hanged their leaders. 2 years later Louis XIV was at war and ordered the French to invade the Spaniards, and tear in the Cussy sacked Santiago. In 1691, the Spaniards attacked the north and sacked Cap François. Island tensions subsided once peace was restored and Spain's last Habsburg monarch, the deformed invalid Charles II, died on the 30th of November 1700. Being succeeded by the 16-year-old French Bourbon princeling Philip of Anjou.
18th century.
The House of Bourbon replaced the House of Habsburg in Spain in 1700 and introduced economic reforms that gradually began to revive trade in Santo Domingo. The Crown progressively relaxed the rigid controls and restrictions on commerce between Spain and the colonies and among the colonies. The last floaters sailed in 1737. The monopoly port system was abolished shortly thereafter. By the middle of the century, the population was bolstered by emigration from the Canary Islands, resettling the northern part of the colony and planting tobacco in the Cibao Valley, and importation of slaves was renewed. The colony of Santo Domingo saw a population increase during the 17th century, as it rose to about 91,272 in 1750. Of this number approximately 38,272 were white landowners, 38,000 were free mixed people of color, and some 15,000 were slaves. This contrasted sharply with the population of the French colony of Saint-Domingue, present-day Haiti, the wealthiest colony in the Caribbean and whose population of 500,000 was 90% enslaved and overall 7 times as numerous as the Spanish colony of Santo Domingo. The Spanish settlers, whose blood by now was mixed with that of Tainos, Africans and Canary Guanches, proclaimed, "It does not matter if the French are richer than us. We are still the true inheritors of this island. In our veins runs the blood of the heroic conquistadors who won this island of ours with sword and blood. When the War of Jenkins' Ear between Spain and Britain broke out in 1739, Spanish privateers, particularly from Santo Domingo, began to troll the Caribbean Sea, a development that lasted until the end of the 18th century. During this period, Spanish privateers from Santo Domingo sailed into enemy ports looking for ships to plunder, thus harming commerce with Britain and New York. As a result, the Spanish obtained stolen merchandise, foodstuffs, ships, enslaved persons, that were sold in Hispaniola's port, with profits accruing to individual sea raiders. The revenue acquired in these acts of piracy was invested in the economic expansion of the colony and led to repopulation from Europe. As restrictions on colonial trade were relaxed, the colonial elites of Street Domingo offered the principal market for Santo Domingo's exports of beef, hides, mahogany, and tobacco. With the outbreak of the Haitian Revolution in 1791, the rich urban families linked to the colonial bureaucracy fled the island, while most of the rural Haitians cattle ranchers remained, even though they lost their principal market. Although the population of Spanish Santo Domingo was perhaps 1/4 that of French Saint-Domingue, this did not prevent the Spanish king from launching an invasion of the French side of the island in 1793, attempting to take advantage of the chaos sparked by the French Revolution. French forces checked Spanish progress toward Port-au-Prince in the south, but the Spanish pushed rapidly through the north, most of which they occupied by 1794. Although the Spanish military effort went well on Hispaniola, it did not so in Europe's Sea War of the Pyrenees. As a consequence, Spain was forced to cede Santo Domingo to the French under the terms of the Treaty of Basel July 22, 1795 in order to get the French to withdraw from Spain.
French rule.
In 1801, Toussaint Louverture, who at least in theory represented Imperial France, marched into Santo Domingo from Saint-Domingue to enforce the terms of the treaty. Toussaint's army committed numerous atrocities. As a consequence, the Spanish population fled from Santo Domingo in exodus proportions. French control of the former Spanish colony passed from Toussaint Louverture to General Charles Leclerc when he seized the city of Santo Domingo in early 1802. Following the defeat of the French under Gen. Donation de Rochambeau-Cap in November 1803 by the Haitians, their new leader, Dessalines, attempted to drive the French out of Santo Domingo. He invaded the Spanish side of the island, defeated the French-led Spanish colonials at Rivière del Zur, and besieged the capital on March 5, 1805. At the same time, the Haitian general Christophe marched north through Cibao, capturing Santiago where he massacred prominent individuals who had sought refuge in a church. The arrival of small French squadrons off the Haitian coast at Goncalves and at Santo Domingo forced the Haitians to withdraw. As Christophe retreated across the island, he slaughtered and burned. In October 1808 the landowner Juan Sanchez Ramirez began a rebellion against the French colonial government in Santo Domingo, and the insurgents were aided by Puerto Rico and British Jamaica. The British ejected the French and returned Santo Domingo to the Spaniards in 1809. The Spaniards not only tried to re-establish slavery in Santo Domingo, but many of them also mounted raiding expeditions into Haiti to capture blacks and enslave them as well.
Unification of Hispaniola 1822-44.
The newly independent republic ended 2 months later under the Haitian government led by Jean-Pierre Boyer. As Toussaint Louverture had done 2 decades earlier, the Haitians abolished slavery in order to raise funds for the huge indemnity of 150 million francs that Haiti agreed to pay the former French colonists, and which was subsequently lowered to 60 million francs. The Haitian government imposed heavy taxes on the Dominicans. Since Haiti was unable to adequately provision its army, the occupying forces largely survived by commandeering or confiscating food and supplies at gunpoint. Attempts to redistribute land conflicted with the system of communal land tenure terrenos communeros, which had arisen with the ranching economy. and some people resented being forced to grow cash crops under Boyer and Joseph Balthazar in an ex-code rural. In the rural and rugged mountainous areas, the Haitian administration was usually too inefficient to enforce its own laws. It was in the city of Santo Domingo that the effects of the occupation were most acutely felt, and it was there that the movement for independence originated. Haiti's constitution forbade white elites from owning land, and Dominican major landowning families were forcibly deprived of their properties. Many emigrated to Cuba, Puerto Rico, these two being Spanish possessions at the time, or Gran Colombia, usually with the encouragement of Haitian officials who acquired their lands. The Haitians associated the Roman Catholic Church with the French slave masters who had exploited them before independence and confiscated all church property, deported all foreign clergy, and severed the ties of the remaining clergy to the Vatican. All levels of education collapsed. The university was shut down, as it was starved both of resources and students, with young Dominican men from 16 to 25 years old being drafted into the Haitian army. Boyer's occupation troops, who were largely Dominicans, were unpaid and had to forage and sack from Dominican civilians. Haiti imposed a heavy tribute on the Dominican people. Also Francisco del Rosario Sanchez and Ramon Maches Mella, despite not being among the founding members of La Trinitaria, were decisive in the fight for independence. Darty, Mella, and Sanchez are considered the three founding fathers of the Dominican Republic. The Trinitarios took advantage of a Haitian rebellion against the dictator Jean-Pierre Boyer. They rose up on January 27, 1843, ostensibly in support of the Haitian Charles Hérard, who was challenging Boyer for the control of Haiti. However, the movement soon discarded its pretext of support for Hérard and now championed Dominican independence. After overthrowing Boyer, Hérard executed some Dominicans, and threw many others into prison. Darty escaped. The Dominicans repelled the Haitian forces, on both land and sea, by December 1845. The Haitians invaded again in 1849 after France recognized the Dominican Republic as an independent nation. In an overwhelming onslaught, the Haitians seized one frontier town after another. Santana, being called upon to assume command of the troops, met the enemy at Oka, April 21, 1849, with only 400 men, and succeeded in utterly defeating the Haitian army. In November 1849 Balaguer launched a naval offensive against Haiti to forestall the threat of another invasion. In 1855, Haiti invaded again, but its forces were repulsed at the bloodiest clashes in the history of the Dominican-Haitian Wars, the Battle of Santom in December 1855 and the Battle of Balaguer in January 1856.
First Republic.
The Dominican Republic's first constitution was adopted on November 6, 1844. The state was commonly known as Santo Domingo in English until the early 20th century. It featured a presidential form of government with many liberal tendencies, but it was marred by Article 210, imposed by Pedro Santana on the Constitutional Assembly by force, giving him the privileges of a dictatorship until the War of Independence was over. These privileges not only served him to win the war but also allowed him to persecute, execute and drive into exile his political opponents, among which Darty was the most important. In Haiti, after the fall of Boyer, black leaders had ascended to the power once enjoyed exclusively by the mulatto elite. Without adequate roads, the regions of the Dominican Republic developed in isolation from one another. In the south, also known at the time as Ozama, the economy was dominated by cattle ranching, particularly in the southeastern savanna, and cutting mahogany and other hardwoods for export. This region retained a semi-feudal character, with little commercial agriculture, the hacienda as the dominant social unit, and the majority of the population living at a subsistence level. In the north, better known as Cibao, the nation's richest farmland, peasants supplemented their subsistence crops by growing tobacco for export, mainly to Germany. Tobacco required less land than cattle ranching and was mainly grown by smallholders, who relied on itinerant traders to transport their crops to Puerto Plata and Monte Cristi. Santana antagonized the Cibao farmers, enriching himself and his supporters at their expense by resorting to multiple peso printings that allowed him to buy their crops for a fraction of their value. In 1848, he was forced to resign and was succeeded by his vice president, Manuel Jiménez. After defeating a new Haitian invasion in 1849, Santana marched on Santo Domingo and deposed Jiménez in a coup d'état. At his behest, Congress elected Buenaventura Baez as president, but Baez was unwilling to serve as Santana's puppet, challenging his role as the country's acknowledged military leader. In 1853, Santana was elected president for his second term, forcing Baez into exile. 3 years later, after repulsing another Haitian invasion, he negotiated a treaty leasing a portion of Samana Peninsula to a U.S. company. Popular opposition forced him to abdicate, enabling Baez to return and seize power. With the treasury depleted, Baez printed 18 million uninsured pesos, purchasing the 1857 tobacco crop with this currency and exporting it for hard cash at immense profit to himself and his followers. Sabao tobacco planters, who were ruined when hyperinflation ensued, revolted and formed a new government headed by José Desiderio Valverde and headquartered in Santiago de los Caballeros. In July 1857, General Juan Luis Franco Bidjo besieged Santo Domingo. The Sabao-based government declared an amnesty to exiles and Santana returned and managed to replace Franco Bidjo in September 1857. After a year of civil war, Santana captured Santo Domingo in June 1858. Overthrew both Baez and Valverde and installed himself as president.
Restoration Republic.
In 1861, after imprisoning, silencing, exiling, and executing many of his opponents and due to political and economic reasons, Santana signed a pact with the Spanish crown and reverted the Dominican nation to colonial status. This action was supported by the cattlemen of the South while the northern elites opposed it. Spanish rule finally came to an end with the War of Restoration in 1865, after 4 years of conflict between Dominican nationalists and Spanish sympathizers. Political strife again prevailed in the following years, warlords ruled, military revolts were extremely common, and the nation amassed debt. In 1869, President Ulysses S. Grant ordered U.S. Marines to the island for the first time. The treaty, which included U.S. payment of $1.5 million for Dominican debt repayment, was defeated in the United States Senate in 1870. Baez was toppled in 1874, returned, and was toppled for good in 1878. A new generation was thence in charge. With the passing of Santana he died in 1864 and Baez from the scene. Relative peace came to the country in the 1880s, which saw the coming to power of General Ulysses Hirox. Lilis, as the new president was nicknamed, enjoyed a period of popularity. He was, however, a consummate dissembler, who put the nation deep into debt while using much of the proceeds for his personal use and to maintain his police state. Hirox became rampantly despotic and unpopular. In 1899, he was assassinated. However, the relative calm over which he presided allowed improvement in the Dominican economy. The sugar industry was modernized, and the country attracted foreign workers and immigrants.
20th century 1900 to 30.
From 1902 on, short-lived governments were again the norm, with their power usurped by caudillos in parts of the country. Furthermore, the national government was bankrupt and, unable to pay Hirox's debts, faced the threat of military intervention by France and other European creditor powers. United States President Theodore Roosevelt sought to prevent European intervention, largely to protect the routes to the future Panama Canal, as the canal was already under construction. He made a small military intervention to ward off European powers, to proclaim his famous Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, and also to obtain his 1905 Dominican Agreement for U.S. administration of Dominican customs, which was the chief source of income for the Dominican government. A 1906 agreement provided for the arrangement to last 50 years. The United States agreed to use part of the customs proceeds to reduce the immense foreign debt of the Dominican Republic and assumed responsibility for said debt. Wilson thus ordered the U.S. occupation of the Dominican Republic. U.S. Marines landed on May 16, 1916, and had control of the country 2 months later. The military government established by the U.S., led by Vice Admiral Harry Shepard Knapp, was widely repudiated by the Dominicans, with many factions within the country leading guerrilla campaigns against U.S. forces. Vasquez gave the country 6 years of stable governance, in which political and civil rights were respected and the economy grew strongly, in a relatively peaceful atmosphere. During the government of Horacio Vasquez, Rafael Trujillo held the rank of lieutenant colonel and was chief of police. This position helped him launch his plans to overthrow the government of Vasquez. Trujillo had the support of Carlos Rosario Peña, who formed the civic movement, which had as its main objective to overthrow the government of Vasquez. In February 1930, when Vasquez attempted to win another term, his opponents rebelled in secret alliance with the commander of the National Army, the former National Guard, General Rafael Leonidas Trujillo Molina. Trujillo secretly cut a deal with rebel leader Rafael Estela Urina. In return for letting Urina take power, Trujillo would be allowed to run for president in new elections. As the rebels marched toward Santo Domingo, Vasquez ordered Trujillo to suppress them. However, feigning neutrality, Trujillo kept his men in barracks, allowing Urina's rebels to take the capital virtually uncontested. On March 3, Urina was proclaimed acting president with Trujillo confirmed as head of the police and the army. As per their agreement, Trujillo became the presidential nominee of the newly formed Patriotic Coalition of Citizens, Spanish, Coalición Patriótica de los Ciudadanos, with Urina as his running mate. During the election campaign, Trujillo used the army to unleash his repression, forcing his opponents to withdraw from the race. Trujillo stood to elect himself, and in May he was elected president virtually unopposed after a violent campaign against his opponents, ascending to power on August 16, 1930.
Trujillo aged 1930 to 61.
There was considerable economic growth during Rafael Trujillo's long and iron-fisted regime, although a great deal of the wealth was taken by the dictator and other regime elements. There was progress in healthcare, education, and transportation, with the building of hospitals and clinics, schools, and roads and harbors. Trujillo also carried out an important housing construction program and instituted a pension plan. He finally negotiated an undisputed border with Haiti in 1935 and achieved the end of the 50-year customs agreement in 1941, instead of 1956. He made the country debt-free in 1947. This was accompanied by absolute repression and the copious use of murder, torture, and terrorist methods against the opposition. Trujillo renamed Santo Domingo to Ciudad Trujillo, Trujillo City. Near the end of his regime his fortune was an estimated $800 million. In 1937, he ordered what became known as the Parsley Massacre or, in the Dominican Republic, as El Corte the Cutting, directing the army to kill Haitians living on the Dominican side of the border. The army killed an estimated 17,000 to 35,000 Haitian men, women, and children over 6 days, from the night of October 2, 1937, through October 8, 1937. To avoid leaving evidence of the army's involvement, the soldiers used edged weapons rather than guns. The soldiers were said to have interrogated anyone with dark skin, using the shibboleth Perejil parsley to distinguish Haitians from Afro-Dominicans when necessary. The R of Perejil was of difficult pronunciation for Haitians. Trujillo had become expendable. Dissidents inside the Dominican Republic argued that assassination was the only certain way to remove Trujillo. According to Chester Bowles, the U.S. Under-Secretary of State, Internal Department of State discussions in 1961 on the topic were vigorous. Richard N. Goodwin, Assistant Special Counsel to the President, who had direct contacts with the Rebel Alliance, argued for intervention against Trujillo. In February 1963, a democratically elected government under leftist Juan Bosch took office, but it was overthrown in September. On April 24, 1965, after 19 months of military rule, a pro-Bosch revolt broke out. Days later, U.S. President Lyndon Johnson, concerned that communists might take over the revolt and create a second Cuba, sent the Marines, followed immediately by the U.S. Army's 82nd Airborne Division and other elements of the 18th Airborne Corps, in Operation Powerpack. "We don't propose to sit here in a rocking chair with our hands folded and let the communists set up any government in the Western Hemisphere," Johnson said. The forces were soon joined by comparatively small contingents from the Organization of American States. The Dominican death toll for the entire period of civil war and occupation totaled more than 3,000, many of them black civilians killed when the US-backed military junta engaged in a campaign of ethnic cleansing in the northern, also the industrial part of Santo Domingo. Balaguer remained in power as president for 12 years. His tenure was a period of repression of human rights and civil liberties, ostensibly to keep pro-Castro or pro-communist parties out of power. 11,000 persons were killed. His rule was criticized for a growing disparity between rich and poor. It was, however, praised for an ambitious infrastructure program, which included the construction of large housing projects, sports complexes, theaters, museums, aqueducts, roads, highways, and the massive Columbus Lighthouse, completed in 1992 during a later tenure. In 1978, Balaguer was succeeded in the presidency by opposition candidate Antonio Guzman Fernandez, of the Dominican Revolutionary Party (PRD). Another PRD win in 1982 followed, under Salvador Jorge Blanco. Under the PRD presidents, the Dominican Republic enjoyed a period of relative freedom and basic human rights. Balaguer regained the presidency in 1986 and was re-elected in 1990 and 1994, this last time just defeating PRD candidate José Francisco Peña Gómez, a former mayor of Santo Domingo. The 1994 elections were flawed, bringing on international pressure, to which Balaguer responded by scheduling another presidential contest in 1996. Balaguer was not a candidate. The PSRC candidate was his vice president Jacinto Peinado Garrigosa.
1996 present.
In the 1996 presidential election, Leonel Fernandez achieved the first ever win for the Dominican Liberation Party (PLD), which Bosch had founded in 1973 after leaving the PRD, which he also had founded. Fernandez oversaw a fast-growing economy. Growth averaged 7% per year, unemployment fell, and there were stable exchange and inflation rates. The Dominican Republic has the 9th largest economy in Latin America and is the largest economy in the Caribbean and Central American region. The last major hurricane that struck the country was Hurricane Georges in 1998.
Government and politics.
The Dominican Republic is a representative democracy or democratic republic.
Political culture.
The three major parties are the Conservative Social Christian Reformist Party, in power 1966 to 78 and 1986 to 96, the Social Democratic Dominican Revolutionary Party, in power in 1963, 1978 to 86, and 2000 to 04, and the centrist Liberal and Reformist Dominican Liberation Party, in power 1996 to 2000 and since 2004. The presidential elections of 2008 were held on May 16, 2008, with incumbent Leonel Fernandez winning 53% of the vote. He defeated Miguel Vargas Maldonado, of the PRD, who achieved a 48% share of the vote. Amabel Aristi, of the PRSC, achieved 59% of the vote. Other minority candidates, which included former Attorney General Guillermo Moreno from the Movement for Independence, Unity and Change, and PRSC former presidential candidate and defector Eduardo Estela, obtained less than 1% of the vote. In the 2012 presidential elections, The incumbent president Leonel Fernandez PLD declined his aspirations and instead the PLD elected Danilo Medina as its candidate. This time the PRD presented ex-president Hipólito Trujillo as its choice. The contest was won by Medina with 51.21% of the vote, against 46.95% in favor of Mejia. Candidate Guillermo Moreno obtained 1.37% of the votes. In 2014, the Modern Revolutionary Party was created by a faction of leaders from the PRD and has since become the predominant opposition party, polling in second place for the upcoming May 2016 general elections.
Foreign relations.
The Dominican Republic has a close relationship with the United States and with the other states of the Inter-American system. The Dominican Republic has very strong ties and relations with Puerto Rico. The Dominican Republic's relationship with neighboring Haiti is strained over mass Haitian migration to the Dominican Republic, with citizens of the Dominican Republic blaming the Haitians for increased crime and other social problems. The Dominican Republic is a regular member of the Organization Internationale de la Francophonie. The Dominican Republic has a free trade agreement with the United States, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras and Nicaragua via the Dominican Republic Central America Free Trade Agreement and an economic partnership agreement with the European Union and the Caribbean Community via the Caribbean Forum.
Military.
Congress authorizes a combined military force of 44,000 active duty personnel. Actual active duty strength is approximately 32,000. Approximately 50% of those are used for non-military activities such as security providers for government-owned non-military facilities, highway toll stations, prisons, forestry work, state enterprises, and private businesses. The commander-in-chief of the military is the president. The army is larger than the other services combined with approximately 20,000 active duty personnel, consisting of 6 infantry brigades, a combat support brigade, and a combat service support brigade. The Air Force operates 2 main bases, one in the southern region near Santo Domingo and one in the northern region near Puerto Plata. The Navy operates 2 major naval bases, one in Santo Domingo and one in Las Calderas on the southwestern coast, and maintains 12 operational vessels. The Dominican Republic has the second largest military in the Caribbean region after Cuba. In the Caribbean and Central American region, it is an upper-middle income developing country, with a 2015 GDP per capita of $14,770 in PPP terms. Over the last 2 decades, the Dominican Republic have been standing out as one of the fastest growing economies in the Americas, with an average real GDP growth rate of 5.4% between 1992 and 2014. The country is the site of the second largest gold mine in the world, the Pueblo Viejo mine. The Dominican Republic has a stock market, Bolsa de Valores de la República Dominicana BVRD, and advanced telecommunication system and transportation infrastructure. Government corruption and inconsistent electric service remain major problems. The country also has marked income inequality, contributes to development, sending billions of dollars to Dominican families in remittances. Remittances in Dominican Republic increased to $4,571, 30 million in 2014 from $3,333 million in 2013 according to data reported by the Inter-American Development Bank. Economic growth takes place in spite of a chronic energy shortage, which causes frequent blackouts and very high prices. Despite a widening merchandise trade deficit, tourism earnings and remittances have helped build foreign exchange reserves. Following economic turmoil in the late 1980s and 1990s, during which the gross domestic product GDP fell by up to 5% and consumer price inflation reached an unprecedented 100%, the Dominican Republic entered a period of growth and declining inflation until 2002, after which the economy entered a recession. were convicted. According to the 2005 annual report of the United Nations Subcommittee on Human Development in the Dominican Republic, the country is ranked number 71 in the world for resource availability, number 79 for human development, and number 14 in the world for resource mismanagement. These statistics emphasize national government corruption, foreign economic interference in the country, and the rift between the rich and poor. The Dominican Republic has a noted problem of child labor in its coffee, rice, sugarcane, and tomato industries. The labor injustices in the sugarcane industry extend to forced labor according to the U.S. Department of Labor. 3 large groups own 75% of the land: the State Sugar Council Consejo Estatal de las Yucca, CIA, Grupo Vicini, and Central Romana Corporation. According to the 2016 Global Slavery Index, an estimated 104,800 people are enslaved in the modern-day Dominican Republic, or 1.0% of the population. Some slaves in the Dominican Republic are held on sugar plantations, guarded by men on horseback with rifles, and forced to work.
Currency.
The Dominican peso, abbreviated dollar or O-dollar, ISO 4217 code is DOP, is the national currency, with the United States dollar, the euro, the Canadian dollar and the Swiss franc also accepted at most tourist sites. The exchange rate to the U.S. dollar, liberalized by 1985, stood at 2.70 pesos per dollar in August 1986.
Tourism.
The Dominican Republic is the most visited destination in the Caribbean. The year-round golf courses are major attractions. With both lines opened, ridership increased to 61,270,054 passengers in 2014.
Communications.
The Dominican Republic has a well-developed telecommunications infrastructure, with extensive mobile phone and landline services. Cable internet and DSL are available in most parts of the country, and many internet service providers offer 3G wireless internet service. The Dominican Republic became the second country in Latin America to have 4G LTE wireless service. The reported speeds are from 1 megabit per second up to 100 megabits per second for residential services. For commercial service there are speeds from 256 kilobits per second up to 154 megabits per second. Each set of numbers denotes downstream, upstream speed, that is, to the user, from the user. Projects to extend Wi-Fi hotspots have been made in Santo Domingo. The country's commercial radio stations and television stations are in the process of transferring to the digital spectrum, via HD radio and HD TV after officially adopting ATSC as the digital medium in the country with the switch-off of analog transmission by September 2015. The telecommunications regulator in the country is Indotel Instituto Dominicano de Telecomunicaciones. The largest telecommunications company is Claro, part of Carlos Slim's America Movil, which provides wireless, landline, broadband, and IPTV services. In June 2009 there were more than 8 million phone line subscribers, land and cell users in the D.R., representing 81% of the country's population and a 5-fold increase since the year 2000, when there were 1.6 million. The communications sector generates about 3.0% of the GDP. In November 2009, the Dominican Republic became the first Latin American country to pledge to include a gender perspective in every information and communications technology ICT initiative and policy developed by the government. This is part of the Regional ELAC 2010 plan. The tool the Dominicans have chosen to design and evaluate all the public policies is the APC Gender Evaluation Methodology GEM.
Electricity.
Electric power service has been unreliable since the Trujillo era, and as much as 75% of the equipment is that old. The country's antiquated power grid causes transmission losses that account for a large share of billed electricity from generators. The privatization of the sector started under a previous administration of Leonel Fernandez. The recent investment in a 345 kV Santo Domingo-Santiago electrical highway concentrated efforts were announced to increase efficiency of delivery to places where the collection rate reached 70%. There were 103 males for every 100 females in 2007. The population density in 2007 was 192 per square kilometers, 498 per square miles, and 63% of the population lived in urban areas. The southern coastal plains and the Cibao Valley are the most densely populated areas of the country. The capital city Santo Domingo had a population of 2,907,100 in 2010. Other important cities are Santiago de los Caballeros 745,293, La Romana Pop 214,109, San Pedro de Macorís Pop 185,255, Higgy 153,174, San Francisco de Macorís Pop 132,725, Puerto Plata Pop 118,282, and La Vega Pop 104,536. Per the United Nations, the urban population growth rate for 2000 to 2005 was 2.3%. Some converted Sephardic Jews from Spain were part of early expeditions. Only Catholics were allowed to come to the New World. Later there were Jewish migrants coming from the Iberian Peninsula and other parts of Europe in the 1700s. Some managed to reach the Caribbean as refugees during and after the Second World War. Some Sephardic Jews reside in Sosua while others are dispersed throughout the country. Self-identified Jews number about 3,000. Other Dominicans may have some Jewish ancestry because of marriages among converted Jewish Catholics and other Dominicans since the colonial years. Some Dominicans born in the United States now reside in the Dominican Republic, creating a kind of expatriate community.
Languages.
The population of the Dominican Republic is mostly Spanish-speaking. The local variant of Spanish is called Dominican Spanish, which closely resembles other Spanish vernaculars in the Caribbean and the Canarian Spanish. In addition, it has influences from African languages and borrowed words from indigenous Caribbean languages particular to the island of Hispaniola. Schools are based on a Spanish educational model. English and French are mandatory foreign languages in both private and public schools, although the quality of foreign languages teaching is poor. Some private educational institutes provide teaching on other languages, notably Italian, Japanese, and Mandarin. Haitian Creole is the largest minority language in the Dominican Republic and is spoken by Haitian immigrants and their descendants. There is a community of a few thousand people whose ancestors spoke Samano English in the Samana Peninsula. They are the descendants of formerly enslaved African Americans who arrived in the 19th century. But only a few elders speak the language today. Tourism, American pop culture, the influence of Dominican Americans, and the country's economic ties with the United States motivate other Dominicans to learn English. The Dominican Republic is ranked second in Latin America and 23rd in the world on English proficiency.
Population centers. Religion.
95. 0% Christians 2. 6% no religion 2. 2% other religions, 57% of the population 5.7 million identified themselves as Roman Catholics and 23% 2.3 million as Protestants in Latin American countries. Protestants are often called evangelicals because they emphasize personal and public evangelizing, and many are evangelical Protestant or of a Pentecostal group. From 1896 to 1907 missionaries from the Episcopal, Free Methodist, Seventh-day Adventist and Moravian churches began work in the Dominican Republic. 3% of the 10.63 million Dominican Republic population are Seventh-day Adventists. Recent immigration as well as proselytizing efforts have brought in other religious groups, with the following shares of the population: Spiritist, 2%, Buddhist, 0.1%, Baha'i, 0.1%, Islam, 0.2%, Judaism, 0.1%. The Catholic Church began to lose its strong dominance in the late 19th century. This was due to a lack of funding, priests, and support programs. During the same time, Protestant evangelicalism began to gain a wider support with their emphasis on personal responsibility and family rejuvenation, economic entrepreneurship, and biblical fundamentalism. The Dominican Republic has two Catholic patroness saints, Nuestra Señora de la Alta Gracia Our Lady of High Grace and Nuestra Señora de las Mercedes Our Lady of Mercy. The Dominican Republic has historically granted extensive religious freedom. According to the United States Department of State, the Constitution specifies that there is no state church and provides for freedom of religion and belief. A concordat with the Vatican designates Catholicism as the official religion and extends special privileges to the Catholic Church not granted to other religious groups. These include the legal recognition of church law, use of public funds to underwrite some church expenses, and complete exoneration from customs duties. In the 1950s, restrictions were placed upon churches by the government of Trujillo. Letters of protest were sent against the mass arrests of government adversaries. Trujillo began a campaign against the Catholic Church and planned to arrest priests and bishops who preached against the government. This campaign ended before it was put into place, with his assassination. During World War II, a group of Jews escaping Nazi Germany fled to the Dominican Republic and founded the city of Sosua. It has remained the center of the Jewish population since.
20th century immigration.
In the 20th century, many Arabs from Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine, Japanese, and, to a lesser degree, Koreans settled in the country as agricultural laborers and merchants. The Chinese companies found business in telecom, mining, and railroads. The Arab community is rising at an increasing rate and is estimated at 80,000. There is an increasing number of Puerto Rican immigrants, especially in and around Santo Domingo. They are believed to number around 10,000. There are over 700,000 people of Haitian descent, including a generation born in the Dominican Republic.
Haitian immigration.
Haiti is the neighboring nation to the Dominican Republic and is considerably poorer, less developed and is additionally the least developed country in the Western Hemisphere. In 2003, 80% of all Haitians were poor, 54% living in abject poverty and 1% were illiterate. The country of 9 million people also has a fast-growing population, but over two-thirds of the labor force lack formal jobs. Haiti's per capita GDP PPP was $1,300 in 2008, or less than 1/6 of the Dominican figure. As a result, hundreds of thousands of Haitians have migrated to the Dominican Republic, with some estimates of 800,000 Haitians in the country, while others put the Haitian-born population as high as 1 million. They usually work at low-paying and unskilled jobs in building construction and house cleaning and in sugar plantations. There have been accusations that some Haitian immigrants work in slavery-like conditions and are severely exploited. Due to the lack of basic amenities and medical facilities in Haiti, a large number of Haitian women, often arriving with several health problems, crossed the border to Dominican soil. They deliberately come during their last weeks of pregnancy to obtain medical attention for childbirth, since Dominican public hospitals do not refuse medical services based on nationality or legal status. Statistics from a hospital in Santo Domingo report that over 22% of childbirths are by Haitian mothers. Haitians burn wood charcoal for 60% of their domestic energy production. Because of Haiti running out of plant material to burn, some Haitian bootleggers have created an illegal market for charcoal on the Dominican side. Conservative estimates calculate the illegal movement of 115 tons of charcoal per week from the Dominican Republic to Haiti. Dominican officials estimate that at least 10 trucks per week are crossing the border loaded with charcoal. In 2005, Dominican President Leonel Fernandez criticized collective expulsions of Haitians as having taken place in an abusive and inhuman way, after a UN delegation issued a preliminary report stating that it found a profound problem of racism and discrimination against people of Haitian origin. Dominican Foreign Minister Carlos Morales Troncoso issued a formal statement denouncing it, asserting that our border with Haiti has its problems. This is our reality and it must be understood. It is important not to confuse national sovereignty with indifference, and not to confuse security with xenophobia. The children of Haitian immigrants are eligible for Haitian nationality, are denied it by Haiti because of a lack of proper documents or witnesses.
Emigration.
The first of three late 20th century emigration waves began in 1961 after the assassination of dictator Trujillo. From 1966 to 1978, the exodus continued, fueled by high unemployment and political repression. Communities established by the first wave of immigrants to the U.S. created a network that assisted subsequent arrivals. In the early 1980s, underemployment, inflation, and the rise in value of the dollar all contributed to a third wave of emigration from the Dominican Republic. Today, emigration from the Dominican Republic remains high. There was also a growing Dominican immigration to Puerto Rico, with nearly 70,000 Dominicans living there. Although that number is slowly decreasing and immigration trends have reversed because of Puerto Rico's economic crisis.
Health.
In 2007, the Dominican Republic had a birth rate of 22.91 per 1,000 and a death rate of 5.32 per 1,000. Preschool education is organized in different cycles and serves the 2 to 4 age group and the 4 to 6 age group. Preschool education is not mandatory except for the last year. Basic education is compulsory and serves the population of the 6 to 14 age group. Secondary education is not compulsory, although it is the duty of the state to offer it for free. It caters to the 14 to 18 age group and is organized in a common core of 4 years and 3 modes of 2 years of study that are offered in 3 different options: general or academic, vocational, industrial, agricultural, and services, and artistic. The higher education system consists of institutes and universities. The institutes offer courses of a higher technical level. The universities offer technical careers, undergraduate and graduate. These are regulated by the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology.
Crime.
In 2012, the Dominican Republic had a murder rate of 22.1 per 100,000 population. The Dominican Republic has become a transshipment point for Colombian drugs destined for Europe as well as the United States and Canada. The Dominican Republic responded with increased efforts to seize drug shipments, arrest and extradite those involved, and combat money laundering. The often light treatment of violent criminals has been a continuous source of local controversy. In April 2010, 5 teenagers, aged 15 to 17, shot and killed 2 taxi drivers and killed another 5 by forcing them to drink drain cleaning acid. On September 24, 2010, the teens were sentenced to prison terms of 3 to 5 years, despite the protests of the taxi drivers' families.
Culture.
Due to cultural syncretism, the culture and customs of the Dominican people have a European cultural basis, influenced by both African and native Taino elements. Although endogenous elements have emerged within Dominican culture, Spanish institutions in the colonial era were able to predominate in the Dominican cultures, making of as a relative success in the acculturation and cultural assimilation of African slaves diminished African cultural influence in comparison to other Caribbean countries. Music and sport are of great importance in the Dominican culture, with merengue and bachata as the national dance and music, and baseball as the favorite sport. The designs carry over into the villas and buildings throughout the country. It can also be observed on buildings that contain stucco exteriors, arched doors and windows, and red-tiled roofs. The indigenous peoples of the Dominican Republic have also had a significant influence on the architecture of the country. The Taino people relied heavily on the mahogany and guano dried palm tree leaf to put together crafts, artwork, furniture, and houses. Utilizing mud, thatched roofs, and mahogany trees, they gave buildings and the furniture inside a natural look, seamlessly blending in with the island's surroundings. Lately, With the rise in tourism and increasing popularity as a Caribbean vacation destination, architects in the Dominican Republic have now begun to incorporate cutting-edge designs that emphasize luxury. In many ways an architectural playground, villas and hotels implement new styles, while offering new takes on the old. This new style is characterized by simplified, angular corners and large windows that blend outdoor and indoor spaces. As with the culture as a whole, contemporary architects embrace the Dominican Republic's rich history and various cultures to create something new. Surveying modern villas, one can find any combination of the three major styles. A villa may contain angular, modernist building construction, Spanish colonial style arched windows, and a traditional tent hammock in the bedroom balcony.
Cuisine.
Dominican cuisine is predominantly Spanish, Taino, and African. The typical cuisine is quite similar to what can be found in other Latin American countries. One breakfast dish consists of eggs and mango mashed, boiled plantain. Heartier versions of mango are accompanied by deep-fried meat, Dominican salami, typically, cheese, or both. Lunch, generally the largest and most important meal of the day, usually consists of rice, meat, beans, and salad. La bandera, literally the flag, is the most popular lunch dish. It consists of meat and red beans on white rice. Sancocho is a stew often made with 7 varieties of meat. Meals tend to favor meats and starches over dairy products and vegetables. Many dishes are made with sofrito, which is a mix of local herbs used as a wet rub for meats and sautéed to bring out all of a dish's flavors. Throughout the south-central coast, bulgur, or whole wheat, is a main ingredient in quipes or tipili bulgur salad. Other favorite Dominican foods include chicharrón, yuca, casab, pastelitos empanadas, batata, yam, pastéis en hoja, chimichurris, and tostones. Some treats Dominicans enjoy are arroz con leche or arroz con dulce, bizcocho dominicano lit, Dominican cake, habichuelas con dulce, flan, frio snow cones, dulce de leche, and carne sugarcane. The beverages Dominicans enjoy are morosonando, rum, beer, mamajuana, batida smoothie, jugos naturales, freshly squeezed fruit juices, mabi, coffee, and charca, also called maize cacao, casquedo, maize con dulce and maize con leche. The last item being found only in the southern provinces of the country such as San Juan.
Music and dance.
Musically, the Dominican Republic is known for the world-popular musical style and genre called merengue. Salsa music has had a great deal of popularity in the country. During the late 1960s, Dominican musicians like Johnny Pacheco, creator of the Fania All-Stars, played a significant role in the development and popularization of the genre. Dominican rock is also popular. Many, if not the majority, of its performers are based in Santo Domingo and Santiago.
Fashion.
The country boasts one of the 10 most important design schools in the region, La Escuela de Diseño de Altos de Chauvin, which is making the country a key player in the world of fashion and design. Noted fashion designer Oscar de la Renta was born in the Dominican Republic in 1932, and became a U.S. citizen in 1971. He studied under the leading Spaniard designer Cristobal Balenciaga and then worked with the House of Lanvin in Paris. By 1963, he had designs bearing his own label. After establishing himself in the U.S., De la Renta opened boutiques across the country. His work blends French and Spaniard fashion with American styles. Although he settled in New York, De la Renta also marketed his work in Latin America, where it became very popular, and remained active in his native Dominican Republic, where his charitable activities and personal achievements earned him the Juan Pablo Duarte Order of Merit and the Order of Cristobal Colon. In the center of the cross is the Dominican coat of arms, in the same colors as the national flag. The coat of arms pictures a red, white, and blue flag-draped shield with a Bible, a gold cross, and arrows. The shield is surrounded by an olive branch on the left and a palm branch on the right. The Bible traditionally represents the truth and the light. The gold cross symbolizes the redemption from slavery, and the arrows symbolize the noble soldiers and their proud military. A blue ribbon above the shield reads, Dios, Patria, Libertad meaning God, Fatherland, Liberty. A red ribbon under the shield reads, Republica Dominicanum meaning Dominican Republic. Out of all the flags in the world, the depiction of a Bible is unique to the Dominican flag. The national flower is the Bayahibe rose and the national tree is the West Indian mahogany. The national bird is the Cigna palmera or palm chatulus dominicus. The Dominican Republic celebrates Dia de la Altagracia on January 21st in honor of its patroness, Darts Day on January 26th in honor of one of its founding fathers, Independence Day on February 27th, Restoration Day on August 16th, Virgin de las Mercedes on September 24th, and Constitution Day on November 6th.
Sports.
Baseball is by far the most popular sport in the Dominican Republic. Other notable baseball players born in the Dominican Republic are Jose Bautista, Adrian Beltre, George Bell, Robinson Cano, Rico Carty, Bartolo Colon, Nelson Cruz, Edwin Encarnacion, Ubaldo Jimenez, Francisco Liriano, David Ortiz, Placido Polanco, Albert Pujols, Hanley Ramirez, Manny Ramirez, Jose Reyes, Sammy Sosa, and Miguel Tejeda. Felipe Hill has also enjoyed success as a manager and Omar Minaya as a general manager. In 2013, the Dominican team went undefeated en route to winning the World Baseball Classic. In boxing, the country has produced scores of world-class fighters and several world champions, such as Carlos Cruz, his brother Leo, Juan Guzman, and Joan Guzman. Basketball also enjoys a relatively high level of popularity. Tito Horford, his son Al, Felipe Lopez, and Francisco Garcia are among the Dominican-born players currently or formerly in the National Basketball Association (NBA). Olympic gold medalist and world champion hurdler Felix Sanchez hails from the Dominican Republic, as does NFL defensive end Luis Castillo. Other important sports are volleyball, introduced in 1916 by U.S. Marines and controlled by the Dominican Volleyball Federation, taekwondo, in which Gabriel Mercedes won an Olympic silver medal in 2008, and introduction.
Dominican Republic.
Background. The Taino, indigenous inhabitants of Hispaniola prior to the arrival of the Europeans, divided the island into 5 chiefdoms and territories. Christopher Columbus explored and claimed the island on his first voyage in 1492. It became a springboard for Spanish conquest of the Caribbean and the American mainland. In 1697, Spain recognized French dominion over the western third of the island, which in 1804 became Haiti. The remainder of the island, by then known as Santo Domingo, sought to gain its own independence in 1821 but was conquered and ruled by the Haitians for 22 years. It finally attained independence as the Dominican Republic in 1844. In 1861, the Dominicans voluntarily returned to the Spanish Empire, but 2 years later they launched a war that restored independence in 1865. A legacy of unsettled, mostly non-representative rule followed, capped by the dictatorship of Rafael Leonidas Trujillo from 1930 to 1961. Juan Bosch was elected president in 1962 but was deposed in a military coup in 1963. In 1965, the U.S. led an intervention in the midst of a civil war sparked by an uprising to restore Bosch. In 1966, Joaquin Balaguer defeated Bosch in the presidential election. Balaguer maintained a tight grip on power for most of the next 30 years when international reaction to flawed elections forced him to curtail his term in 1996. Since then, regular competitive elections have been held in which opposition candidates have won the presidency. Former President Leonel Fernandez Reina, first term 1996 to 2000. Won election to a new term in 2004 following a constitutional amendment allowing presidents to serve more than one term, and was later re-elected to a second consecutive term. In 2012, Danilo Medina Sanchez became president. He was re-elected in 2016.
Geography.
Dominican Republic.
Location. Caribbean, eastern 2/3 of the island of Hispaniola, between the Caribbean Sea and the North Atlantic Ocean, east of Haiti.
Geographic coordinates, 1900N. 7040W.
Map references: Central America and the Caribbean.
Area, total.
48,670 square kilometers.
Land.
48,320 square kilometers.
Water.
350 square kilometers.
Country comparison to the world.
132.
Area, comparative. Slightly more than twice the size of New Jersey.
Area comparison map.
Area comparison map.
Land boundaries, total.
376 kilometers.
Border countries. 1.
Haiti 376 kilometers.
Coastline, 1,288 kilometers.
Maritime claims, territorial sea.
12.
Exclusive economic zone.
200.
Contiguous zone.
24.
Continental shelf.
200 more to the edge of the continental margin.
Measured from claimed archipelagic straight baselines.
Climate, tropical maritime. Little seasonal temperature variation. Seasonal variation in rainfall.
Terrain, rugged highlands and mountains interspersed with fertile valleys.
Elevation, mean elevation.
424 meters.
Lowest point.
Lago Enriquillo minus 46 meters.
Highest point.
Pico d'Arty 3098 meters.
Natural resources: nickel, bauxite, gold, silver, arable land.
Land use, agricultural land.
51.5%.
Arable land.
16.6%. Permanent crops.
10.1%. Permanent pasture.
24.8%.
Forest.
40.8%.
Other.
7.7%.
Irrigated land. 3,070 square kilometers.
Population distribution. Coastal development is significant, especially in the southern coastal plains and the Cibao Valley, where population density is highest. Smaller population clusters exist in the interior mountains. Cordillera Central.
Natural hazards. Lies in the middle of the hurricane belt and subject to severe storms from June to October, occasional flooding, periodic droughts.
Environment. Current issues. Water shortages. Soil eroding into the sea damages coral reefs. Deforestation.
Environment. International agreements. Party 2.
Biodiversity. Climate change Kyoto Protocol. Desertification. Endangered species. Hazardous wastes. Marine dumping. Marine life conservation. Ozone layer protection. Ship pollution. Wetlands.
Signed, but not ratified.
Law of the sea.
Geography. Note. Shares island of Hispaniola with Haiti. Eastern 2/3 makes up the Dominican Republic. Western 1/3 is Haiti, the second largest country in the Antilles, after Cuba. Geographically diverse with the Caribbean's tallest mountain, Pico d'Arty, and lowest elevation and largest lake, Lago Enriquillo.
People and society.
Dominican Republic.
Population 10,298,756.
Country comparison to the world.
88.
Nationality, noun.
Dominican, S.
Adjective.
Dominican.
Ethnic groups, mixed 70.4%. Mestizo/Indio 58%, Mulatto 12.4%, Black 15.8%, White 13.5%, Other 0.3%.
Note.
Respondents self-identified their race. The term Indio in the Dominican Republic is not associated with people of indigenous ancestry but people of mixed ancestry or skin color between light and dark.
Languages. Spanish, official.
Religions. Roman Catholic 47.8%, Protestant 21.3%, Other 2.2%, None 28%, Don't know, no response. 7%.
Age structure 0 to 14 years.
27.56%, Male 1,442,926. Female 1,395,809.
15 to 24 years.
18.52%, male 969,467, female 937,765.
25 to 54 years.
40.28%, male 2,112,813. Female 2,035,902.
55 to 64 years.
7.71%. Male 397,821. Female 396,172.
65 years and over.
5.92%. Male 286,300. Female 323,781.
Population pyramid.
Population pyramid.
Dependency ratios.
Dependency ratios are a measure of the age structure of a population. They relate the number of individuals that are likely to be economically dependent on the support of others. Dependency ratios contrast the ratio of youths, ages 0-14, and the elderly, ages 65 plus, to the number of those in the working age group, ages 15-64. Changes in the dependency ratio provide an indication of potential social support requirements resulting from changes in population age structures. As a fertility lever. More dependency ratios field listing.
Total dependency ratio.
57.8.
Youth dependency ratio.
47.3.
Elderly dependency ratio.
10.5.
Potential support ratio.
9.5.
Median age total.
27.3 years.
Male.
27.1 years.
Female.
27.4 years.
Country comparison to the world.
145.
Population growth rate 0.99%.
Country comparison to the world.
109.
Birth rate 18.9 births out of 1,000 population.
Country comparison to the world.
84.
Death rate 6.4 deaths out of 1,000 population.
Country comparison to the world.
145.
Net migration rate -2.6 migrants out of 1,000 population.
Country comparison to the world.
170.
Population distribution. Coastal development is significant, especially in the southern coastal plains and the Cibao Valley, where population density is highest. Smaller population clusters exist in the interior mountains, Cordillera Central.
Urbanization, urban population.
81.1% of total population.
Rate of urbanization.
2.06% annual rate of change.
Major urban areas, population. 3.172 million. Santo Domingo, capital.
Sex ratio at birth.
1.04 male every 1 female.
0 to 14 years.
1.03 male every 1 female.
15 to 24 years.
1.03 male every 1 female.
25 to 54 years.
1.04 male every 1 female.
55 to 64 years.
1 male every 1 female.
65 years and over.
0.88 male every 1 female.
Total population.
1.02 male every 1 female.
Mother's mean age at first birth 21.3 years.
Note.
Median age at first birth among women 25 to 29.
Maternal mortality rate 92 deaths/100,000 live births.
Country comparison to the world.
75.
Infant mortality rate total.
22.7 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
Male.
25 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
Female.
20.3 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
Country comparison to the world.
72.
Life expectancy at birth total population.
71.3 years.
Male.
69.7 years.
Female.
73.1 years.
Country comparison to the world.
151.
Total fertility rate 2.28 children born/woman.
Country comparison to the world.
88.
Contraceptive prevalence rate 69.5%.
Health expenditures 4.4% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
157.
Physicians density 1.56 physicians out of 1,000 population.
Hospital bed density 1.6 beds out of 1,000 population.
Drinking water source improved.
Urban.
85.4% of population.
Rural.
81.9% of population.
Total.
84.7% of population.
Unimproved.
Urban.
14.6% of population.
Rural.
18.1% of population.
Total.
15.3% of population.
Sanitation facility access. Improved.
Urban.
86.2% of population.
Rural.
75.7% of population.
Total.
84% of population.
Unimproved.
Urban.
13.8% of population.
Rural.
24.3% of population.
Total.
16% of population.
HIV/AIDS, adult prevalence rate, 0.9%.
Country comparison to the world.
46.
HIV/AIDS, people living with HIV/AIDS, 67,000.
Country comparison to the world.
54.
HIV/AIDS, deaths, 2,600.
Country comparison to the world.
42.
Major infectious diseases, degree of risk.
High.
Food or waterborne diseases.
Bacterial diarrhea, hepatitis A, and typhoid fever.
Vector-borne diseases.
Dengue fever.
Note:
Active local transmission of Zika virus by Aedes species mosquitoes has been identified in this country. As of August 2016, it poses an important risk. A large number of cases possible among U.S. citizens if bitten by an infective mosquito. Other less common ways to get Zika are through sex, via blood transfusion, or during pregnancy, in which the pregnant woman passes Zika virus to her fetus.
Obesity. Adult prevalence rate, 27.6%.
Country comparison to the world.
37.
Children under the age of 5 years underweight, 4%.
Country comparison to the world.
89.
Education expenditures, NAR.
Literacy. Definition.
Age 15 and over can read and write.
Total population.
93.8%.
Male.
93.8%.
Female.
93.8%.
School life expectancy. Primary to tertiary education. Total.
14 years.
Male.
13 years.
Female.
14 years.
Unemployment. Youth ages 15-24. Total.
13.5%.
Male.
9.9%.
Female.
19.7%.
Country comparison to the world.
102.
Government.
Dominican Republic.
Country name. Conventional long form.
Dominican Republic.
Conventional short form.
The Dominican.
Local long form.
República Dominicana.
Local short form.
La Dominicana.
Etymology.
The country name derives from the capital city of Santo Domingo, St. Dominic.
Government type. Presidential republic.
Capital name.
Santo Domingo.
Geographic coordinates.
1828 N. 6954 W.
Time difference.
UTC 4, 1 hour ahead of Washington, D.C., during Standard Time.
Etymology.
Named after Saint Dominic de Guzman, 1170–1221, founder of the Dominican Order.
Administrative divisions. 10 regions. Regina, singular, region. Sibao Nordeste, Sibao Noroeste, Sibao Norte, Sibao Sur, El Vale, Enriquillo, Higuamo, Ozama, Valdisa, Yuma.
Independence. The 27th of February 1844, from Haiti.
National holiday. Independence Day, the 27th of February, 1844.
Constitution. History.
Many previous, 38 total. Latest proclaimed the 13th of June 2015.
Amendments.
Proposed by a special session of the National Congress called the National Revisory Assembly. Passage requires at least 2/3 majority approval by at least 1/2 of those present in both houses of the Assembly. Passage of amendments to constitutional articles such as fundamental rights and guarantees, territorial composition, nationality, or the procedures for constitutional reform also requires approval in a referendum, amended many times, last in 2017.
Legal system. Civil law system based on the French Civil Code. Criminal Procedures Code modified in 2004 to include important elements of an accusatory system.
International Law Organization participation accepts compulsory ICJ jurisdiction, Accepts jurisdiction.
Citizenship. Citizenship by birth.
No.
Citizenship by descent only.
At least one parent must be a citizen of the Dominican Republic.
Dual citizenship recognized.
Yes.
Residency requirement for naturalization.
2 years.
Suffrage. 18 years of age. Universal and compulsory. Married persons regardless of age can vote. Note: members of the armed forces and national police by law cannot vote.
Executive branch. Chief of State.
President Danilo Medina Sanchez, since the 16th of August 2012. Vice President Margarita Sedanoda Fernandez, since the 16th of August 2012. Note: the President is both Chief of State and Head of Government.
Head of Government.
President Danilo Medina Sanchez, since the 16th of August 2012. Vice President Margarita Sedanoda Fernandez, since the 16th of August 2012.
Cabinet.
Cabinet nominated by the President.
Elections/appointments.
President and Vice President directly elected on the same ballot by absolute vote in 2 rounds if needed for a 4-year term. Eligible for a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. Election last held on the 15th of May 2016, next to be held in 2020.
Election results.
Danilo Medina Sanchez re-elected president in first round. Percent of vote: Danilo Medina Sanchez, PLD 61.7%, Luis Rodolfo Abinada Corona, PRM 35%, other 3.3%, Margarita Sedanoda Fernandez, PLD, re-elected vice president.
Legislative branch. Description:
Bicameral National Congress or Congreso Nacional consists of
Senator Senado, 32 seats. Note: electoral system changes by the Central Election Commission are being challenged by the ruling party in opposition.
House of Representatives or Cámara de Diputados, 190 seats. Members directly elected in multi-seat constituencies by proportional representation vote. Members serve 4-year terms.
Elections. Senate. Last held on the 15th of May 2016. Next to be held in May 2020.
House of Representatives. Last held on the 15th of May 2016. Next to be held in May 2020.
Election results. Senate. Percent of vote by party. NAR. Seats by party. Plot 26.2. BIS 1. Plot 1. Plot 1. PSC 1. Composition as of 2018. Men 29. Women 3. Percent of women 9.4%.
House of Representatives. Percent of vote by party. NA. Seats by party. PLD 106. PRM 42. PRSC 18. PRD 16. PLRD 3. Other 5. Composition as of 2018. Men 139. Women 51. Percent of women 26.8%. Note: total National Congress percent of women 24.3%.
Judicial branch. Highest courts.
Supreme Court of Justice or Suprema Corte de Justicia, consists of a minimum of 16 magistrates. Constitutional Court or Tribunal Constitucional, consists of 13 judges. Note: the Constitutional Court was established in 2010 by constitutional amendment.
Judge selection in term of office.
Supreme Court and Constitutional Court judges appointed by the National Council of the Judiciary comprised of the President, the leaders of both chambers of Congress, the President of the Supreme Court, and a non-governing party congressional representative. Supreme Court judges appointed for 7-year terms. Constitutional Court judges appointed for 9-year terms.
Subordinate courts.
Courts of Appeal, Courts of First Instance, Justices of the Peace, Special Courts for Juvenile, Labor, and Land Cases, Contentious Administrative Court for cases filed against the government.
Political parties and leaders. Dominican Liberation Party or PLD. Leonel Fernandez Reina.
Dominican Revolutionary Party or PRD. Miguel Vargas Maldonado.
Institutional Social Democratic Bloc or BIS.
Liberal Reformist Party or PRL, formerly the Liberal Party of the Dominican Republic or PLRD.
Modern Revolutionary Party or PRM. Jose Ignacio Paliza.
National Progressive Front or FNP. Vinicio Castillo, Pellegrin Castillo.
Social Christian Reformist Party or PRSC. Federico Antun.
International Organization Participation, ACP, OSIS, BKI, CARICOM, Observer, CD, SELEC, FAO, G77, IADP, IAEA, IBRD, ICAO, ICC, National Committees, ICT, ICRM, IDA, IFAT, IFC, IFCS, IO, ILO, IMF, IMO, Interpol, IOC, IAM, IPU, ISO, Correspondence, ITSO, ITU, ITUC, NGOs, LS, LIA, MEGA, MINUSMA, NAM, OAS, OIF, Observer, OpenL, OPCW, Pacific Alliance, Observer, PCA, Petrocaribe, SICA, Associated Member, UN, UNCTAD, UNESCO, UNIDO, Union Latina, UNTO, APU, WCO, WFTU, NGOs, WHO, WIPO, WMO, WTO.
Diplomatic representation in the U.S. Chief of Mission.
Ambassador Jose Tomas Perez Vazquez since the 23rd of February 2015.
Chancery.
1715 22nd Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20008.
Telephone.
12023326280.
Fax.
12022658057.
Consulate. S. General.
Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miguez, Puerto Rico, Miami, New Orleans, New York, San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Consulate. S.
San Francisco.
Diplomatic representation from the U.S. Chief of Mission.
Ambassador Robin Bernstein, since the 6th of September 2018.
Embassy.
Avenue República de Colombia number 57, Santo Domingo.
Mailing address.
Unit 5500, Opoe A 34041 5500.
Telephone.
18095677775.
Fax.
18096867437.
Flag description. A centered white cross that extends to the edges divides the flag into 4 rectangles. The top ones are ultramarine blue, hoist side, and vermilion red, and the bottom ones are vermilion red, hoist side, and ultramarine blue. A small coat of arms featuring a shield supported by a laurel branch, left, and a palm branch, right, is at the center of the cross. Above the shield a blue ribbon displays the motto, Dios, Patria, Libertad, God, Fatherland, Liberty, and below the shield, Republica Dominicana appears on a red ribbon. In the shield a Bible is opened to a verse that reads, "While la verdad nos hará libre, and the truth shall set you free." Blue stands for liberty, white for salvation, and red for the blood of heroes.
National symbols. Palm chat, bird. National colors.
Red, white, blue.
National anthem. Name.
Hymno Nacional. National anthem.
Lyrics. Music.
Emilio Prudhomme / Jose Reyes.
Note.
Adopted 1934, also known as Quisqueyanos Valientes, Valiant Sons of Quisquay. The anthem never refers to the people as Dominican but rather calls them Quisqueyanos, a reference to the indigenous name of the island.
Economy.
Dominican Republic.
Economy. Overview. The Dominican Republic was for most of its history primarily an exporter of sugar, coffee, and tobacco, but over the last 3 decades the economy has become more diversified as the service sector has overtaken agriculture as the economy's largest employer, due to growth in construction, tourism, and free trade zones. The mining sector has also played a greater role in the export market since late 2012 with the commencement of the extraction phase of the Pueblo Viejo gold and silver mine, one of the largest gold mines in the world.
For the last 20 years, the Dominican Republic has been one of the fastest growing economies in Latin America. The economy rebounded from the global recession in 2010-16, and the fiscal situation is improving. A tax reform package passed in November 2012, a reduction in government spending, and lower energy costs helped to narrow the central government budget deficit from 6.6% of GDP in 2012 to 2.6% in 2016, and public debt is declining. Marked income inequality, high unemployment, and underemployment remain important long-term challenges. The poorest half of the population receives less than 1/5 of GDP, while the richest 10% enjoys nearly 40% of GDP.
The economy is highly dependent upon the US, the destination for approximately half of exports and the source of 40% of imports. Remittances from the US amount to about 7% of GDP, equivalent to about a third of exports and two-thirds of tourism receipts. The Central America Dominican Republic Free Trade Agreement came into force in March 2007, boosting investment and manufacturing exports.
GDP, purchasing power parity, $173 billion.
$165.4 billion.
$155.2 billion.
Note.
Data in 2017 dollars.
Country comparison to the world.
72.
GDP, official exchange rate, $76.09 billion.
GDP, real growth rate, 4.6%.
6.6%.
7%.
Country comparison to the world.
61.
GDP, per capita. PPP, $17,000.
$16,400.
$15,500.
Note.
Data are in 2017 dollars.
Country comparison to the world.
102.
Gross national saving, 21.6% of GDP.
20.8% of GDP.
20.7% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
84.
GDP, composition, by end use. Household consumption.
69.3%.
Government consumption.
12.2%.
Investment in fixed capital.
21.9%.
Investment in inventories.
Minus 0.1%.
Exports of goods and services.
24.8%.
Imports of goods and services.
Minus 28.1%.
GDP, composition, by sector of origin. Agriculture.
5.6%.
Industry.
33%.
Services.
61.4%.
Agriculture, products. Cocoa, tobacco, sugarcane, coffee, cotton, rice, beans, potatoes, corn, bananas, cattle, pigs, dairy products, beef, eggs.
Industries, tourism, sugar processing, gold mining, textiles, cement, tobacco, electrical components, medical devices.
Industrial production growth rate, 3.1%.
Country comparison to the world.
99.
Labor force, 4.732 million.
Country comparison to the world.
85.
Labor force, by occupation. Agriculture.
14.4%.
Industry.
20.8%.
Services.
64.7%.
Unemployment rate, 5.1%.
5.5%.
Country comparison to the world.
76.
Population below poverty line, 30.5%.
Household income or consumption by percentage share, lowest 10%.
1.9%.
Highest 10%.
37.4%.
Distribution of family income, Gini index, 47.1.
45.7.
Country comparison to the world.
25.
Budget, revenues.
11.33 billion.
Expenditures.
13.62 billion.
Taxes and other revenues, 14.9%. Of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
194.
Budget surplus, plus, or deficit, dash, minus, 3%, of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
132.
Public debt, 37.2% of GDP.
34.6% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
140.
Fiscal year, calendar year.
Inflation rate, consumer prices, 3.3%.
1.6%.
Country comparison to the world.